In January 2008, a single name sent shockwaves through the global financial system. Jerome Kerviel, a low-level trader at Société Générale, one of France's largest and oldest banks, had just racked up losses of nearly $7 billion. The headlines called him the rogue trader. The man who single-handedly gambled away fortunes and brought a banking titan to its knees. But was it really that simple? Born in a small French town, the son of a blacksmith and a hairdresser, Jerome Kerviel was no Wall Street hotshot, no private jets, no Ferraris, no Ivy League degree. He was the everyman of high finance, hardworking, quiet, almost invisible. So how does a man like this end up at the center of one of the biggest bank scandals in history? Société Générale was a financial giant, steeped in a culture of innovation and aggressive risk-taking. Kerviel was just one cog in the machine, until he wasn't. By 2007, he was secretly building massive positions in European stock index futures. At one point, his exposure reached €50 billion, more than the bank's entire market value. He created fake trades to hide his bets, a digital sleight of hand so sophisticated it went unnoticed for months. When the losses hit, the bank's reaction was swift. Kerviel was a fraudster, a lone wolf, a criminal. But Kerviel told a different story. He claimed his superiors knew, maybe not every detail, but enough to understand the risks. After all, as long as the trades were profitable, why rock the boat? This wasn't just about one man's recklessness. This was about a system, one that rewards risk, punishes failure, and looks the other way until it's too late. The Jerome Kerviel scandal wasn't an isolated event. It was part of a larger pattern, a global financial system on the edge, driven by greed, complex derivatives, and fragile oversight. So who's really to blame, the man or the machine that created him? This is the story of Jerome Kerviel and the $7 billion Société Générale scandal. A tale of ambition, betrayal, and the dark side of modern banking. It remains one of the most shocking financial scandals of the 21st century. A young trader, a staggering loss of nearly $7 billion, and a century-old French bank left teetering on the edge. At the center of the storm was Jerome Kerviel, a man catapulted overnight from obscurity to global infamy. Branded a rogue trader by his employer, Société Générale, he became the scapegoat for one of the largest trading losses in history. But was Kerviel truly the villain of this story, or was he just a symptom of a banking system addicted to high-stakes risk and reckless profit? Jerome Kerviel's beginnings were far removed from the opulence of global finance. Born in 1977 in Pont-l'Abbé, a quiet town in Brittany, France, his upbringing was modest, his father a blacksmith, his mother a hairdresser. Ambitious and determined to rise, Kerviel studied finance at the University of Nantes before earning a master's degree in finance from Lumière University Lyon II. Unlike graduates of France's elite grandes écoles, Kerviel didn't have powerful family connections or Ivy League credentials. He was the everyman of finance, hardworking, competent, and eager to prove himself. He joined Société Générale in 2000, starting in the bank's middle office responsible for monitoring trades rather than executing them. But his quiet demeanor masked a sharp mind. By 2005, he had been promoted to the bank's Delta One trading desk, where he began placing bets on European stock index futures. Founded in 1864, Société Générale (SOC Gen) as it's known was one of France's oldest and most respected financial institutions. Over decades, it built a reputation for innovation in derivatives and complex financial products, but with innovation came risk. In the mid-2000s, SOC Gen, like many global banks, was riding the wave of cheap credit and speculative markets. Aggressive targets and a culture that prized profit above all created an environment where traders were rewarded for pushing boundaries. Kerviel was no exception. He learned quickly how to leverage positions and hedge trades to make his bets look smaller than they were. And as long as his strategies made money, no one asked too many questions. By 2007, Kerviel's trades had grown exponentially. Using his knowledge of the bank's back-office systems, he concealed massive positions, buying and selling contracts worth tens of billions of euros, far exceeding his authorized limits. When markets moved in his favor, Kerviel generated impressive profits. At one point, he reportedly earned €1.4 billion for the bank. But when his bets soured, the house of cards began to wobble. In January 2008, Société Générale discovered Kerviel's unauthorized positions. His exposure was staggering €50 billion, equivalent to the entire market capitalization of the bank. In a desperate scramble to unwind these positions, the bank incurred a loss of €4.9 billion, roughly $7 billion at the time. The revelation sent shockwaves through France's financial system and sparked fears of a broader banking collapse. Société Générale CEO, Daniel Bouton, described Kerviel's actions as a fraud so elaborate it defied belief. Société Générale wasted no time in branding Kerviel a rogue trader acting alone. They claimed he bypassed internal controls, forged documents, and created fictitious transactions to cover his tracks. But Kerviel rejected the label. He insisted his supervisors were aware of his trades and turned a blind eye as long as he was profitable. Only when his bets backfired, he claimed, did they distance themselves and sacrifice him to save their own reputations. In his memoir L'Engrenage, Kerviel wrote, "They knew what I was doing. They encouraged it. Then they hung me out to dry." For many, his story echoed an uncomfortable truth about banking culture: profits are praised, but losses are punished, no matter how systemic the risk-taking. Kerviel's downfall came as the 2008 global financial crisis was gathering momentum. Across the Atlantic, Lehman Brothers teetered on the brink, while Wall Street titans packaged toxic subprime mortgages into complex derivatives. In Europe, banks like Royal Bank of Scotland and UBS faced multi-billion-dollar losses from reckless bets. To critics, Kerviel wasn't unique. He was simply the first domino to fall in a system riddled with excessive leverage, inadequate oversight, and blind faith in complex financial instruments. As one analyst put it, Kerviel didn't invent the culture of risk-taking. He just got caught. In 2010, Kerviel faced trial in Paris. The prosecution painted him as a calculating fraudster who acted with deceit and arrogance. His defense argued he was a scapegoat for a bank that had failed to supervise its own traders. The court was unsympathetic. Kerviel was convicted of breach of trust, forgery, and unauthorized computer use. His sentence, 5 years in prison, 2 years suspended, a symbolic order to repay €4.9 billion. Though the repayment was clearly impossible, it cemented the narrative that Kerviel alone bore the blame. The scandal sparked widespread outrage in France and beyond. How could a single mid-level trader expose a global bank to such catastrophic losses? Regulators responded with new rules. European banks were forced to hold more capital reserves. Trader bonuses were capped to discourage reckless risk-taking. Oversight of complex derivatives tightened slightly, but critics argue these measures were too little, too late. The culture of short-term profit over long-term stability remains deeply entrenched. Jerome Kerviel served 3 years in prison before his release. Today, he's a controversial figure viewed by some as a symbol of systemic failure and by others as the architect of his own downfall. In interviews, he has expressed regret but continues to insist he was not the only one at fault. Meanwhile, Société Générale recovered, bolstered by emergency funds and a restructuring effort, but the scars remain. For many, the Kerviel affair is a cautionary tale about unchecked ambition, inadequate oversight, and a global financial system still vulnerable to human error and greed. Jerome Kerviel served his time, 3 years behind bars. His career destroyed. His name forever linked to one of the biggest trading scandals in banking history. But Société Générale, they survived. Restructured. Moved on, they blamed Kerviel. Called him a rogue trader, but critics saw a different story, a convenient scapegoat for a bank that built a culture of reckless risk-taking and turned a blind eye. Until the profits stopped rolling in, was he guilty? Yes, but was he alone? That's the question the financial world still struggles to answer. Since 2008, regulators have tightened oversight. New rules. Higher capital requirements. Caps on trader bonuses, but has anything really changed? Banks still chase profits, complex financial products still dominate markets, and somewhere out there, the next rogue trader may already be pushing boundaries. Jerome Kerviel wasn't the first rogue trader. He won't be the last, because in a system designed to reward risk and bury responsibility, someone always pays the price. The question is, next time, will it be another trader, or all of us? Was Jerome Kerviel truly a rogue trader or just the unlucky man caught in the gears of a profit-driven machine? His story forces us to confront a deeper question: are we any safer today from the next financial disaster, or is history destined to repeat itself? Subscribe to the Ledger for more stories they don't want you to know.